Ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing on this beautifully chilly and brisk October evening in my part of the world? It is 5:55 p.m. I am your host, as usual, Arthur Moats, and with me is my trusty co-host, Deke. How's it going, Deke?
I'm doing great, man. I just gotta say that right now I do think that I would take Duck Hodges over Josh Allen.
I think that's a very reasonable take. For the literals in the audience, I am not literally Arthur Moats, and Gage Ryan is not literally. Well, he might literally be Deke, but I can't confirm that.
Deke seems like a cool guy. I'll take it as a compliment.
Yeah. I just love this. I have this running joke of just being somebody different from Steelers Internet every once in a while in our Discord server, which you can join at patreon.com/5SMU. Yeah, I think
we all know that you're secretly Alex Kozora.
Yeah, I was Alex Kozora for a while. Yesterday I changed it to Spence with the air quotes. I always have to put the air quotes on Spence. I don't know why. But,
I don't know why either.
I think
you seem to have this rivalry with Spence over like that.
Yeah,
he seems like the nicest human being in the world. And you just have beef with him.
You know why? Because he stole my job. Okay, that's supposed to be me doing what he's doing, and also they kind of ripped off our graphics package a little bit. Their intro looks a lot like ours. I'm just saying. I think they done seen our show. That's all. I think Spence might be in the comment section once in a while. It's all good. It's all love. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just having a good time. I'm just jealous that he gets to hang out with the infinitely more famous Ben Roethlisberger.
No, the only person that actually stole our stuff was Barstool, and that was way back.
They did steal that one video you made directly. That was some BS. But yeah, I haven't been live with y'all in a little while. It's exciting to be back in front of a live mic. As some of you know, I was taking some time away getting married. As you can see, I'm officially off the market. Yeah, very exciting stuff. My wedding was fantastic. If you'd like to contribute to me going to Japan in the new year, hit that super chat button. Drop a 5-star $5 in the chat. See, I'm gonna try to build up to the honeymoon, but. It was tremendous, and I'm excited to be back. I've missed talking to you, Gage.
It's been a lot of fun to see the kind of little things you've been preparing for the wedding. And so I was excited. I mean, for a number of reasons, I was excited for you. But also, I wanted to know about the crystal skeleton.
Oh
What
my
what what do,
god.
what do we do about that?
Oh my god. It yeah, I forgot I mentioned it. I didn't know, I don't know who I mentioned what to. Um it was unbelievable. It was a huge smash hit. I'm going to see if I can find a picture of it. It was, I think, I mean, it came out as perfect as you could have hoped.
Oh
They
yeah.
rigged it up with like RGB lights and everything, so it was like rotating colors. Here,
Mhm.
let me turn off my my video effect here so I can show you what it looks like without blurring. Um, so this is like, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably like a little overblown, but you can see it's like rotating between like pink and blue, and it was, yeah, he was, I mean, it looks like something out of like the Terminator or something.
Pretty
Sorry,
badass thing to have at a wedding.
it's
I like
hard
the
to
little
get
curveballs like
the
that.
contrast, but I'll post a picture. It
Sure.
was unbelievable. Great experience, definitely. If you find someone you feel like marrying, I recommend it. Do it. It's a good move. But that's not what people are here to listen to me talk about. They are here to listen to me talk about Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Gage, it's been 6 years now we're doing this show, and it feels like a soap opera, doesn't it? Like, it's
Yes.
just, no matter what happens, what permutation of players and things and whatever, um, we just always end up back at the same place, which is debating the quarterback position. It's the only thing we ever can talk about. I want to hear your initial take. But real quick, just hit that like button. Like, there's a bunch of people watching already. Hit that like button, man. It matters. It's a big deal. Hit it for us so we can rank a little bit. But yeah, what's your initial reaction to Tomlin's sort of like non-committal kind of answer to the starter question this week?
Well, I mean, it's exactly what I would have expected. I mean, I don't know if anybody was setting out expecting him to come up to the podium and be like, "Yeah, Justin's our guy. No more
Mm-hmm.
quarterback competition. We're good." I don't know what you were expecting. Of course, he was going to be vague and unconvincing, and that's just how it's going to be, which is fine. Coaches want to give away the least amount that they possibly can.
Of
That's
course.
great. So I think that they're gonna stick with the hot hand, so to speak. I really, really doubt that we would see Russell Wilson. I mean, I feel like any time that we were gonna any Russell Wilson experiment, or Justin Fields for that matter, we knew it was gonna come with growing pains, and we're seeing Justin. I don't know if iron out those growing pains, but we're seeing him mature as a player. Certainly, I mean, he's already leaps and bounds what he was in Chicago for sure. And so to take that development and completely halt it to bring in somebody like
Yeah.
I don't know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You said on the show, and I think it's a great point that we're a what is it, a bad snap and a fourth down stop away from being 6-0. And I think to take the quarterback away when he's been a significant part of that, that's stupid.
I mean, not only has he been a significant part of it, I think there's an argument. Shit, I don't even think there's an argument to be made. I think he is the offense this year. I mean, he is
So far,
responsible for pretty much all of the growth in the offense this year. Because would anybody out there say the offensive line has progressed and improved? No, because they've been hurt. Whether that's their fault or not, they're not a better
I was gonna
unit.
say.
They're not a better unit than they were at the second part of last year. It's just a fact. And Broderick Jones seems to, whether it's injury or whatever, he just is constantly making boneheaded plays. And, it's not often that an offensive lineman is bad enough that I am constantly being forced to acknowledge it. But he's really been, you certainly wouldn't say a step forward for him this year. Frazier has been an improvement at center. Now we don't know if he's going to miss some time. The guards have been kind of a wash because the young guys have performed better than you'd expect, but still, you didn't have Sayamalu for a month. You don't have James Daniels now for the rest of the season, even though McCormick's looking like a total stud out of nowhere. Who the hell is this guy?
What is he, a fourth round pick or something?
Yeah,
And
and
just kind of
he's been
outperformed everyone.
phenomenal. Yeah, he's been phenomenal. You wouldn't say the receivers are any better. The running backs are exactly the same. So, I mean, what do you look at and say that this offense is better? It's the offensive coordinator, sure, but it's the quarterback, man. I mean, when you
Mhm.
watch these games, I feel like I am taking fucking crazy pills, dude. I can't I like the what I see when I watch the game and then what I see when I listen to whether it's sports radio or Twitter or people even in our Discord server is pretty chill actually and mostly pro Justin Fields, but like
Yeah.
just in general the reaction and particularly I'm noticing it with like older fans, which I don't even feel like I'm a young fan anymore now in my mid 30s, but still like particularly with that the people that sort of like you know are the kind of like Bill Cowrie type people.
Yeah.
You know, you're just seeing more of that. Well, no, I want a pocket passer and I want this and I watch these games, man, and I look at these easy touchdowns that Justin Fields is getting by just tucking and running from the 5, and I'm like, I'm not trying to take that out of the offense. I don't care if it's a passing touchdown. I don't care if it's a rushing touchdown. He's been the most effective player inside the red zone that the Steelers have had since Antonio in 2018, maybe James Conner that same year. So like
Mm.
I don't get what people are seeing. And then you go and you look at the reaction and everybody's like he's terrible and I want a pocket passer and we got to see what Russell's got. I'm like they're 4-2. They're 4-2. I mean they're 4-2.
And
Like
it's a solid 4-2. It's not like a fluky 4-2 where we should be 2-4. No, we've done pretty damn well this year.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like are you seeing that disconnect just in the way that people are
Yes.
sort of talking versus like what you're seeing watching it? I mean, I'm not seeing a guy who's like spectacular, but I'm seeing a guy who, after the last 5 or 6 years of watching the Steelers just spin the wheels in the mud at that quarterback position, I got something where I'm like, man, I feel like I want to see what this is going to be like in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, in a
Yeah.
month, in a year. And I don't know. I don't know what to take out of what Tomlin said today because I kind of agree with you that I don't think it makes any sense to go to Wilson, but uh, he's refused to move him off number 1 on the depth chart, and the vagueness to me implies I don't know. I really don't know. I really have no read. I have no idea. I call it an honest, true to God 50-50% toss up right now. I really don't
And
know.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely something where you can understand the argument, but I'm not going to be the one to make it. It's something where I like where we're going. I don't know really where we're going, but I like it. And after seeing, like you said, the stalemate that has been the quarterback position for a number of years now, to finally have something where we can at least. Do you remember a year or two ago when you were when complaining, but like whenever you were saying we have nothing to go to,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there's nothing where we can get 4 yards or 7 yards. There's nothing where in the red zone we can threaten with X, Y, or Z, and we have that. And it's just for now at least, it's just nice to have that. And
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna get that with Russell Wilson. Will he make more pocket passes? Sure, but I mean, is Russell Wilson at this stage of his career going to be leaps and bounds better than Justin Fields? Right now, I don't think so.
Well, yeah, and then also like what about the protection? Like that's the other thing that people aren't talking about is that Wilson is a guy who is not as mobile as he once was. And some of the evasiveness that we've seen Justin Fields pull off throughout the season, I mean, there are plays where I've like been like I've never seen a guy do that for the Steelers. Never. I've seen people already. There's so many people in there. I see people in the chat right now that are so ready to compare him to like Cordell Stewart and whatever. I don't care what anybody
I
says.
agree with it.
Justin Fields is better than Cordell Stewart. He is. Cordell Stewart
Yeah.
is the most rose-colored glasses evaluation of any fandom in history, and I'm going to tell you guys all that now because I can tell a lot of the people who say that are the young folks, and God bless you. I know the idea of the Steelers once having a mobile quarterback who played multiple positions is very appealing, but when he was the quarterback, almost everyone fucking wanted to move on
Hated
almost
his
the
guts.
entire time. He had one really good year in 2001, but other than that, he was benched by week 3 of 2002 for Tommy freaking Maddox. Okay, so you know, but that.
So,
Go ahead. Yeah.
oh well, here. So, like to your point about Cordell Stewart, I'm gonna age myself as a Steeler fan a little bit. The first memory I had being a Steeler fan was watching Amos Zaraway break a run against the Oakland Raiders in
Famous
like
Amos.
2000.
Yeah.
Famous Amos. God bless him.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that I ever remember about being a football fan, number two behind that, was learning a phrase about Cordell Stewart, which is, if you expect interceptions, give the ball to Cordell Stewart. And I have just never heard, like outside of like Daniel Jones, which is never a comparison you want to have
Oh,
ever in your life. But I mean, outside of guys like that, you don't hear a lot of people that are just like, here's the immediate correlation to this quarterback: interceptions. And
yeah.
that's rough. That's really,
Yeah.
really rough.
No, I think Fields is a better passer, and he's a
Yeah.
way more dynamic runner. I mean, Fields truly is in rarefied air as a runner. He does stuff moving that, it blows me away. I think he's truly second only to Lamar in that sense. So, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I'd
don't.
say like he's I think that Cordell had like more straight line speed, but Justin's definitely a much more dynamic runner. And
Yeah,
I'll take that.
yeah. No, I mean, he legitimately had 1,000 yards one year in
Yeah.
Chicago, and like, I don't know if you don't want that sort of a balance, but like, I just, I think that's tells you what kind of player he is. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
And
seeing.
I
I
mean,
mean,
like when he was
yeah.
pretty much the entire offense in Chicago. And I mean, like, when do you ever have offense in Chicago?
Cordell was not 10 times better runner than Fields. That's ridiculous, man. And much respect, M Power, but it's just not
No,
true. It's just not true. It's
no.
just not. Like,
It's a little rosy.
I don't know what the numbers are. Cordell was a great, great, great athlete,
Mhm.
no doubt about it. But again, Fields had 1,100 fucking yards in the NFL like 2 years ago. Like, that's, say what you want about the quarterback. That's a good year for. I mean, Najee doesn't put up 1,100 yards, and he runs the ball 450 times a year.
Yeah, and I like, okay, maybe I'm being a little too literal with the comment, but I mean 10 times the runner. Come on.
Yeah,
If you want to
no.
say he's a better runner, sure, but 10 times is
Yeah, it's
a
a
little rich for me.
wash. It's a wash, even if you
Yeah,
want to call it that. But
yeah,
respectfully, you're entitled.
respectfully.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I just, this is such a divisive issue and so interesting to me. And like I said, I mean, it's so fascinating that we always end up back in the same place, which I think just shows you like if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. And I think we're just at the point now where we've just been so used to this for so long. Um, but I mean, I get it. I get wanting to see what Russell Wilson is capable of.
But
But
we've
I
seen
also,
it.
yeah, that's true. That's true. But I mean, he was good last year by most metrics. He was a pretty good quarterback last year. He had a lot of fourth quarter comebacks. He did have a lot of passing touchdowns, although I always caution people the passing touchdowns are a bit of a misnomer for him last year because I think Denver didn't have a running back get a rushing touchdown until like week 12 or something crazy like that. They only had a handful of rushing touchdowns all year, something like that. Like they just were historically unsuccessful running the ball in the red zone. So I mean, I think that the numbers are a little inflated. It's not like he threw 40 touchdowns. I mean, threw 26 touchdowns, which, admittedly, I would love to have a quarterback throw 26 touchdowns again. But I don't know. I mean, do the people that are in the chat, like Empower and otherwise, that are kind of championing the Russell Wilson thing? I mean, do you really think? Honestly, no, I'm not coloring it. Do you believe that Russell Wilson is capable of bringing this team to winning a Super Bowl this year? Like, I genuinely am asking that question and wondering if you think the answer is yes, because I don't think the answer is yes. And if the answer is not yes, then I'm more interested in finding the answer for 25, 26, 27. And there's no doubt about it that Fields is the more likely answer to those questions.
Slightly better doesn't intrigue me unless Russ can go straight back to MVP form or otherwise, which he won't. Then I'm not really interested. We've seen Russ's best days. I mean, if he wants to, I've heard people bring up trading him, but I mean, honestly, what are you going to get for him? And I'd take him in that mentorship role with Fields because they already have history together, like we talked about before. I don't hate Russ. Steve does, but we have seen that he's a pretty solid teammate. He seems like a halfway decent guy. And I don't know. I'll take that on the sidelines for the vet minimum rather than getting
Oh,
rid of him
yeah.
unless it's for something good.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, he has. You can't have a better backup quarterback than Russell Wilson. I
Yeah.
mean, I absolutely believe that. But Empower feels so strongly that Russell Wilson will win playoff games that Justin won't. And
Are you 2024, like now, like
yeah,
5 years ago, maybe, but even then, Russ's last playoff game where he won, where he scored more than a touchdown, was 2014.
yeah. I mean, there you go. Um, I mean, yeah. I don't know. I mean, he's a guy that the
Here's a
organization
guy.
here's a guy, but when you look at it objectively, right? Okay, I'm not trying to color it. If you look at it objectively, his equivalent of, like, if we were to compare Ben and the Steelers and Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, right? You see that comparison. That's the team that drafted them, the team they had success with early on. They felt such by the time that Russell Wilson was, I guess, 33, because I think it was 2 years ago now. They traded him to the Denver Broncos so that they could give the reins of their offense over to Geno Smith. And I'm not saying Geno Smith isn't a great story, and I'm not saying Geno Smith isn't a good quarterback, but what does that say about that what does that say about that player? Like, what does that tell you objectively about that player, that the people who knew him best, who grew with him, who, built his career, etc., were willing to trade away him, and he's like at the most valuable position in all of professional sports, and they were ready to move on 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know. And then the same thing happened with Denver in a year and a half. And admittedly, you guys know I hate Sean Payton, and that seemed like a match made in hell. But still, they were ready to move on again immediately in favor of going to Bo Nix. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm weirdly rooting for Sean Payton. Can I just mention that? I know you don't like Sean. I know you like hate his guts and curse the ground he walks on. But just like this idea that he has a quarterback in Bo Nix that is playing like he is statistically bad. I don't think he's nearly as bad as the stats indicate. If you want to know the truth, I actually think he's okay, and I think he's probably getting better the longer he learns under Sean, and assuming there's some kind of stability there. But statistically, he's terrible. That said, though, the fact that he's winning with this statistically awful quarterback as much as he is actually kind of hilarious to me. I won't lie. I want him to like make the playoffs or something. Like, you remember when he made the playoffs with like Ian Book or whatever it was, like back in the day? Like, I want to see more of that. I want to see more people making the playoffs with ridiculous quarterbacks.
Yeah, definitely. Christian Ponder types. Yeah, I'm just reading all the comments, and they're just so fascinating. I mean, this topic just brings up such like divisive reactions, and I really love it. It's great for what we do here. If you enjoy our conversation, and if you can't wait to tell me I told you so in 3 weeks, hit that fucking like button right now, because I'm just serving up takes for you to swat away with your tennis racket. I don't care, man. I'm just, I think that's the thing that we try to do here at 5 Star, right? Is like, it's all respectful. Like, we're all just people talking about opinions on a sport thing that we have no, like, I mean, we could literally have a fist fight on air about Justin Fields versus Russell Wilson, and it would not affect a single thing about what Mike Tomlin is going to do on Sunday. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. None of the way any of us feel about it matters. I do think, though, to Tommy, and your username is Tommy and Elizabeth, but I'm assuming it's Tommy, because if that is Elizabeth, props, because hell yeah, I love when women scream at me about sports on the internet. It rarely happens. I genuinely love it. Russ is proven, Fields is still learning. Yeah, and then he says a couple later, I can't wait to say I told you so. Like, look, I hope you tell me I can't told you so, because I want the Steelers to keep winning games no matter what. Yeah. But I just want to build on that point. Russ is proven, Fields is still learning. That's exactly my point, though. That's exactly my point. We know exactly what Russell Wilson is right now. And I think a lot of people have this very 2018 kind of idea about who and what Russell Wilson is. And I just don't think it's the reality of the 2024 version of Russell Wilson. I don't think that you're instantly going to take that mobility stuff out of the offense, which is going to limit those easy completions. I know people are constantly telling me, screaming in my ear, that Justin Fields is missing open guys. And like, yeah, he missed a couple throws this last week.
So will Russ.
Yeah, but so will he. He won't throw over the middle. That's been proven throughout his career. Everybody's been screaming about using the middle of the field. Still learning after how many years in the league? Come on, man. He's 20. He's younger than Kenny Pickett was. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's still like it's not.
Can't see over his lineman.
And for the people,
an actual thing.
I know. I remember hearing about that about Cordell Stewart when he was in his 6th year as a quarterback. He's still learning the position. I don't know. I think that I like the idea of what the possibility could be of the future. I think Wilson, again, he could start and he could be great and we could win 11 games and win a playoff game again and all that. But no matter what happens there with that situation, you are going to end up in a weird spot with Russell Wilson. This is the thing. This is my point. This has been my point all along. It's not that I was very happy the Steelers brought him in. But what you have to look at is the way the last couple situations have gone. Him and Pete Carroll did a lot of work together, a lot of growth, a lot of winning, etc., etc. Did not end well. And no one on those Seahawks teams seems to really stand up for Russell ever when stuff comes up. It doesn't seem like any of those Seahawks, at least on the defensive side of the ball, really like the guy. And so I don't know what that means. I'm just saying, I'm looking at the players, right? And the coach was ready to move on. Pete Carroll shipped him off to Denver. That situation did not end well. Goes to Denver, comes in for a king's ransom, goes through a coach, right? They burned through a coach that first year, right? Didn't they have a coach for like 1 year with him?
What are we talking about? Hackett?
Yeah, right? Was that with Wilson, right?
Yeah, and Hackett, I think he got fired after a year, yeah.
Yeah, so he had 2 coaches. Both situations ended poorly. And now he's in Pittsburgh, and you have this situation where you might bench a young guy who's kind of feeling it and kind of leading the offense. And you're gonna what? You're gonna just hope it doesn't end poorly? Because the best case scenario is, I don't know, they get to the playoffs and win a playoff game. And then you're in a situation where you have to decide, am I going to give $75 million guaranteed to this quarterback who is now 36 years old, and I'm going to let Justin Fields walk at 25 after he showed me what he showed me?
Someone in the chat made a really good point. They said sacrificing the potential of the future for a playoff game.
Yeah.
And, I said this in the beginning, I think of last season, where I said, I just want to win a goddamn playoff game. I don't want to win one that badly.
Yeah.
Like at the risk of quarterback development. No, I'll take a year. That's fine. Justin's already shown me enough. I mean, he's already made, I would say probably at least a dozen, maybe 2 dozen super high level throws that I would not have expected him to make. And that's in the course of 6 games.
Yeah.
So, there's not a lot to complain about with him.
He's accounted for 10 touchdowns. Listen, that's the bottom line. He's accounted for 10 touchdowns in 6 games. Last year, Pickett accounted for 6 in 12 games or 11 games, whatever he played. So
people are just they fall in love with passing touchdowns, myself included. I love pocket passers, so I don't pretend to be anybody different than that. But you also do have to look at what Justin's been able to do so far, just offensively in general. I've made the joke before about Lamar and about how he hasn't developed as a pocket passer, but he has learned in recent years to develop or to win more from the pocket when his legs fail him. And I want Justin to get to that point. But for now, after being starved of offense for so long, I'm just having fun watching it.
I know. I'm just excited to see, yeah. And again, it's whatever. All of our opinions are whatever. It's just, I watched the game and I guess I guess here's the thing is that it's allowed me for the first time in I think since Ben's comeback year in 2020, for the first time since then, to actually just sit and suspend disbelief and just be excited about something an athlete on the Steelers offense is doing. Like, right? Like that's for the last 4 years or whatever it's been. It's like you gotta, you got 100-year-old Roethlisberger. He's waddling like a duck out there. He's tripping over like a dog wearing shoes for the first time. Then you got Trubisky, and that block-headed bastard. I hated him, and he just I never wanted to see him as a Steeler, and I feel even worse after he was a Steeler. He just was so awful every single time he played, and I just hated his stupid square head. And he couldn't get out of town fast enough. Kenny Pickett, God, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Kenny Pickett was just a disaster. Mason Rudolph was sitting on the end of the pine, eventually got his shot, fun little thing, whatever. But still, even when we got to the playoffs last year, I remember making the thumbnail for like the video when we were doing like the last radio of the year. And I remember making it being like, oh, is Mason Rudolph going to take down Josh Allen? And even then I was like, no, he's not. No, come on. But I got to do it as me. I have to. But I never believed it. And I don't know, Fields, man, I'm just having fun. I don't know. It's just enjoyable to watch. It's exciting. You get inside the 5-yard line and you're not just expecting doom. I mean, is that so bad?
Yeah, no, I mean, and people can talk about sustainability all they want and say that Lamar Jackson hasn't won a Super Bowl. And at the end of the day, those criticisms are all entirely valid. There's really no counter argument to that. One of these styles is conducive to efficiency, and one of these styles is conducive to winning in the now. And that's kind of always been Tomlin's thing, when you think about it, is always winning in the now rather than what did we used to say back in the day about this kind of stuff when we still had Ben? It was like, don't rebuild, reload. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of been Tomlin's MO. And so I find this to be like, hopefully this isn't too scatterbrained of a point, but like I feel like he's been wanting to do this with the offense for years now. I feel like he saw what Baltimore did with Lamar and like got those big cartoonish heart eyes that you see in movies. And I really think that he's been wanting that. And that's why he's been preaching quarterback mobility, really to an unnecessary degree. True. And I feel like this is his love child right now, is Arthur Smith and frickin' Justin Fields. And for now, I'm willing to roll with it because we have arguably the best defense in the entire NFL somehow. Yeah. And we got a pretty solid team that can score points. And there's just even that game that we lost against the Colts where, we're down 2 scores, this is over. And then we got pretty close. And it's like, wow, didn't expect us to come back from that. And then it was 10 points, but we came. The fact that we have an offense that can score points just for the first time since Ben Roethlisberger's injury, I'm just willing to be happy with that for now.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really fair point, and it's it's kind of where I'm at too. I think we're pretty much in agreement here. I don't know. I think it's just fascinating. I don't know, man. As always, it's a really interesting spot for Tomlin to be in. I don't know. I felt like most people were reacting to the comments, and because all the like Adam Schefters and stuff tweeted out, oh, Russell's gonna start, and like then people started taking it as gospel. But again, Tomlin was very non-committal and basically said he's just gonna have the opportunity. So I don't know. I think if you really asked me to put my life savings on it, I still feel probably like he's gonna stick with Fields this week. But I don't know. I think it would be a lot to ask. That's the other thing too, is the idea of getting on the moving train, and that's something I want to acknowledge that M Power has said is like, oh well, I just want Russell Wilson to get some snaps and all that, and I agree. But also, Russell Wilson's been in the league for forever. I mean, I can't be worried about him getting work in in stadium setting, as Mike would say. Mason Rudolph didn't play for fucking 2.5 years, and he came out and carved it up last year. I mean, these guys are pros. I'm not worried about him taking snaps. that doesn't worry me. Um, what's
Our
happening? Are you?
chat has been very scatterbrained. What were we gonna
Yeah.
say?
What are you arguing with people about in the chat? What's
I
going
don't
on?
even know, man. Like all I said, well, this thing I was agreeing with Empower on. He's been pretty active in the chat, but he said Tomlin reloading is the equivalent of getting bounced out in the wild card every year. Yeah, he's not really wrong.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of that can be boiled down to quarterback position, but I feel like at the end of the day, like if you're a good coach, I feel like you can supplement talent. I mean, Doug Peterson's about to get fired from Jacksonville, but at the end of the day, he outdueled uh, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady with a backup quarterback. Could you, in
Yeah.
your wildest dreams, imagine Mike Tomlin doing that? I don't think so. They have the same amount of Super Bowl rings, since everybody's arguing about that in the comments too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an interesting spot, man, and I think it would be really weird and tough to ask Wilson, okay, all of a sudden now it's Sunday Night Football, you're playing Aaron Rodgers, you haven't played.
Eh,
I don't know. I think if I had to put money on it, I think he's gonna stick with Fields at least another week or two to the bye and see where it gets him. Because I do think I do agree with you that I think you can see that Tomlin has wanted the mobility thing. And I think he's aware. And I think I'm going to give him some credit. I think, and I could be totally wrong. This could be totally off base, and I could be proven to be an idiot um, in 5 days. But I think he knows that I think he understands what he stumbled into here with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. And I think he's being a little bit of a puppet master pulling some strings here. And I think cuz we said this going into the season where Justin Fields really ended up in a perfect spot because
yeah.
he wasn't expected to be the starter. You got no pressure to win the job, but they're going to say outwardly, "Oh, he's going to compete." And then Wilson gets hurt and he gets the opportunity to take all the snaps. He carries himself like a professional. By all accounts, both Chicago and Pittsburgh,
Mhm.
internally, no one has said anything bad about Fields. Everybody is all positive. He works hard, he's smart, blah, blah, blah. And so he took advantage of that opportunity. Obviously, he got to start going into the season. He started 6 games now, 4-2, quitted himself quite well, I think. And I think what you're seeing is Tomlin with that non-answer, given a little bit of like a keeping the dog hungry. You know what I mean?
Yes,
If I can
that's
turn a
exactly right.
Tomlinism, but I think it feels a little like, and he knows too, because again, going to Pete Carroll and Sean Payton and all this, Russell Wilson is his whole thing to manage in its own right, right? I think that's part of why he hasn't moved him off the depth chart, even if he does kind of see Fields as the starter, because he knows Russell Wilson is this bigger than life, he's wearing the full shoulder pads when he's the emergency third quarterback. He's Mr. Unlimited. You got to make sure he's plugged in, and I don't know. I think he's pulling some strings.
Yeah, and I mean Tomlin's been quite the puppet master in recent years, if I can continue with that analogy, and it's been fun to see kind of how he is, like you said, keeping the dog hungry a bit. I feel like if you commit to feel like verbally, outwardly, and say to the media, "Yep, he's our guy. There's no more competition. We're good." I think you're setting yourself up for failure. I mean, especially the guy that with the Fields, like Fields, who does have a really bad win-loss record and really bad track record so far. He's been pretty good here. But at the end of the day, is that pretty good going to be sustainable? And I think that part of that comes from not giving him a $250 million guaranteed contract, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
No, I'm not making fun of the Browns and their horrible contract to a
Oh.
serial. You know what? No, I don't have to get into that. But I love the situation that they're in. So shout out to Joe Flacco for getting the hell out of there.
Cleveland, yeah, what a disaster. I love every week there's some new article from like The Ringer or something, and it's always just like, oh, by the way, if you thought Deshaun Watson was bad, you actually had no idea how bad he's been. And there's
Yeah.
like all these stats, like they have their worst offense, the Browns do, um, by EPA, which is like expected points per. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know what I don't know what it means. I'm not gonna lie. Um. Anyway, it's a metric of how successful you are on a per play basis, I believe. And
Yes.
I think the Browns have their worst offense since 2000, which
Correct.
is crazy because it's the Browns. Like, wow.
They have measured so far in this year. I'm going to generalize the statistic a little bit because I don't want to screw up numbers and whatnot. But I do know that they measured like out of 500 and some odd quarterbacks since 2007, that Deshaun Watson is almost dead last this year. Out of every possible, like Duck Hodges, just take your pick of every possible quarterback, and Deshaun Watson this year is almost certainly playing worse than them, and that just warms my heart. You know,
No.
couldn't happen to a better fan, or to excuse me, couldn't happen to a better team. I actually feel bad for their fans, no joke.
Oh, me too. We've talked about it many times. Yeah, it's a shame what they did over there. Yeah, I don't know. They're doomed. They can cut him after this year, but it would incur something like 90 million in dead cap. They'd end up
Yep.
having to basically trade everybody.
Yep.
Just a disaster. I mean, it is in real time becoming the worst trade in NFL history. I mean, this
Mm-hmm.
guy just I mean, it's not to just, you know, fuck it. He deserves it. He's obviously a terrible person and doesn't give a shit about his job, and and that's just what it is. And he's going to make more money in the next year or two than every single person in this chat watching us talk, and me and you
Combined.
combined, for the rest of our lives in the next 2 years. So you know, he can deal with it. Fuck him.
Mm.
uh what a terrible, what, just so terrible. And I gotta imagine there are Browns fans, right,
Oh man.
that secretly turn on the Bucks on Sunday Ticket and like root for Baker, right?
Yeah.
There has to be some
Yeah.
percentage, because like, why would
They
they
have
hate
to.
Baker, right? They didn't. I mean, I know I would in that spot. I'd be watching him just being like, man.
I really feel for a lot of those Brownies fans that really liked Baker and were like, why the hell would you get rid of him? Why would you bring in this piece of shit? Like, it just, I can imagine that was a whole discourse in Cleveland. I really do feel for a lot of their fans because I know how I felt when Ben stuff happened in
Yeah, yeah.
2010 and about how I got lumped into. Anyway, but I remember just how bad he's been this year, and I have been overjoyed to the point where like you've seen how like the trades that people have had that they proposed that they would have to make, where they would have to trade Deshaun Watson to a team that has a lot of cap, that has a lot of like spare cap or whatever, and wants him for some ungodly reason. They would have to trade Deshaun Watson and their own first round pick or something like that, or maybe
Yeah,
multiples,
to basically dump the
just to dump his contract. And
yeah, it's
that
not
is
gonna happen. They're just gonna have to deal with it. They're probably honestly, they're probably hoping he gets suspended again, because I think they have some language that they could get out of the contract if that happens
I
again.
hope
But
not.
yeah, no, it's pretty terrible. Yeah, no, sucks for them.
Oh, but we were talking about Baker though, and just like where he was a guy who was willing to wear their colors when no one else was,
Mm-hmm.
and like did it with pride. And like you and I were
Mm-hmm.
talking about him like getting ran into by, was it Highsmith or something a couple years ago, and him getting up and jawing with the crowd. And it's
Yeah.
like, dude, I totally understand how Cleveland fans love that guy. I totally understand. And so to see, I'm just so happy that he was able. When I heard that he went to Carolina, I was gutted for him because I knew that that was going to be
Yeah.
horrible. But then he was able to land with Todd Bowles and had a great system around him and great players. I'm just so happy to see that he's doing well and kind of ascending to the quarterback we all kind of thought he would be. I
Yeah.
mean, like he had potential in his early years, and then Todd Haley decided to make him throw it deep every play because that's what Todd Haley does. And it was just the most horrific mismatch of a system and player that you could possibly have. So then, even when, what the hell is his name? Freddie Kitchens, even when he was
Yes.
the
Yes.
OC, even he was an improvement at that time because he just made him dink and dunk it. Like, I'm just glad to see that he's finally worked it out. I guess
Yeah,
that's my point.
yeah, no, for sure. But as it stands, the Browns sitting in the basement at 1-5 now, just shockingly terrible. It's going to be interesting to see if they end up in a position to draft a quarterback and if they
Mhm.
decide to do it. Because that's going to be the only way that they could really probably move on from this is they're going to have to probably get a quarterback on a rookie deal and and start all over again. Miles Garrett will be 32 and whatever and whatever. Eh,
And
hey, that's what you do. You can't handle success. That organization, football, I say it all the time. Football, more than any other sport, is just about the organization that you're running.
yeah,
And the Browns just were not capable of handling the minimal amount of success that they experienced. Like that's just the reality of it. They had that little moment of like, oh, we're on
that
the up and
playoff game
up.
was their Super Bowl.
Yeah, and then they pushed all their chips in and they bet poorly. And now they are probably going to be going backwards for again the foreseeable future. What else is new?
My God, I just remember Cleveland fans like all not all of them Brownies fans. Relax, but there's like one or two in the chat. There has to be, but with a lot of them talking about how they were going to have a 14-3 record that year and how Deshaun was going to go off and be MVP, and I was like, I was pretty sure that it was going to fall apart. Not 100% because you never know, but I was pretty sure that with all of that, there was going to be some kind of crash, and it was
Mm-hmm.
great. I guess if we can pivot from that, like them bringing in Joe Flacco actually turning out to be a breath of fresh air. I enjoyed watching Cleveland offense because Joe Flacco was just saying screw it and throwing it all
Listen,
over the field. It was fun, man.
listen, Flacco's still cutting it up over in Indianapolis. I was so pissed when I found
Hmm.
out he was the Colts backup a couple weeks ago. I had no idea. Richardson, I'm listening on the radio, and because I had to go do that, I had to bring that skeleton upstate,
Yeah,
and I'm
shout out
listening
to
on
the
the
skeleton.
radio, and they're like, "Oh, Richardson's going off," and I'm like, "Sick." I'm thinking they got Drew Lock or something, and they're like, "Oh, Joe Flacco," and I'm like, "Fuck," because I just knew. I was like, "No, he's gonna come in and chuck it around the ball field," and yeah, he's his little second arc here has been
Hmm.
amazing, and you can't tell me he's not a starting quarterback in this league. I
Oh
won't
yeah.
hear it. He's a starting quarterback still. He is.
Hmm.
What he's proven now in the last like season's worth of games is abundantly apparent. He got his back right and whatever since Baltimore, and he's just out there chucking it around. He still throws a great ball. I can't tell you. I mean, he's not the you know the sort of guy that like an Aaron Rodgers is in terms of his like ability. But like you can't tell me you can see the difference between those two guys throwing the ball. Honestly, Flacco's got as good of an arm as anyone and always has.
I agree.
It's funny to see him cutting it up now at almost 40.
I would almost like. What did I say in the Charlie Badge video? I said he had a T-shirt cannon for an arm. He
Yeah.
really does. Like it's
Yeah.
just he's got that arm where you're like he's got a screw it kind of an arm where you just
Yeah.
know that he's gonna go out there and just play. And
Yeah.
he had Tommy Maddox's kind of attitude where even if he threw 3 picks, he's like, I don't care, I'm gonna throw it again. Like those
Yeah.
dudes are always gonna come to play. And
Yeah.
I enjoy seeing that. Not against my team because it sucked, but I like seeing that old Joey Flack is still slinging it out there.
No,
That he's
that's a
not like some broken old quarterback or
yeah,
anything.
no, that's the thing, man. Guys like that, um, that's why him, he's a better version of that because obviously he's a Super Bowl winner and a Super Bowl MVP and had arguably the best playoff run in NFL history. I hate to say it because it's the Ravens, but it's might be true.
Mm.
Um, the guys like that, though, I mean, it's the same as Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph could be in the league for another 5-6 years if he's you're gonna look back and be like, wow, Mason Rudolph had an 11-year career in the NFL. Because if you just can do that and you can just throw the ball like that, there's a job for you. That's the reality. There's so few 6'5" guys who can throw a football 50 yards without trying. Like, there's
Yeah.
not that many people in the world who can do it.
And those are the kind of guys that sometimes, 8, 10 years into their career where they just figure it out and
Hmm.
just something clicks. I mean, it's like every scout in this game will tell you that progression is not linear. That's something that I have to wrap my head around, and I'm sure that plenty of other fans have wrapped their heads. Like, well, if he could just fix A, B, and C, and it's like, yeah, okay, if like those are all massive ifs. And when you find with the I totally forgot our train of thought here. What were we talking about?
Hey man, it happens to the best of us. We were talking about the Mason Rudolphs and the Joe Flacco's of the world. Sort of.
Those are the kind of guys that sometimes 8, 10, 12 years in their career, they just kind of figure it out. And those are the times that, like, the Geno Smiths that you see, or the Rich Gannons
Trent Green was one.
Trent Green. Yeah. Where these guys just figure it out, man. And then all of a sudden they're throwing it deep all over the field, but they also they can sustain drives now. And now they have some of those holes in their game, or all those holes in their game, plugged. It's fun to see. It's fun to see those success stories and those welcome back to the NFL stories. I don't know if you necessarily throw this in the same category, but I always love Kurt Warner's story, playing in these other leagues and whatnot, and, stocking a grocery shelf. First round picks are always fun to see, but I am always way more interested by the undrafted guys.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's, that's why I think so many of us had such love for Antonio Brown, even though, I mean, obviously we had love for him as like a talented player and a guy who won games. But, I think we all saw him as like, he was a 6th round pick. Like, he saw
was an
him
underdog for a long time.
Yeah, you saw him for the first 3 years he was on the team. He wasn't a guy that everybody knew. And then once he established himself, he was like the most popular player on the team. Like, I had an Antonio jersey so long ago that it's a Reebok authentic. That I got one after the first year. Like I was like, this is my guy. He's gonna be so good. Like, but I think that's when you get that level of like respect for the players, where you just like, or conversely, because you did talk about Geno Smith. I love the Geno Smith or even the Darius Hayward-Bay archetype, where it's like you're a first-round pick, and then it turns out you're really not that good at being a wide receiver, but you sit down and say, listen, I want to be a professional football player. Like, what can I do? And that guy just became a demon of a special teamer and reinvented his
Killebrew arc.
Yeah, and reinvented his self. But I'm saying Hayward-Bay was like a first-round pick as a receiver. Like that's true, yeah. And so there's one thing, you're a 6th-round pick, you become a special teamer. But I do think there's something to be said for a guy who's like, a first-round pick, and then you start to say like, okay, like maybe I'm not really a good receiver, but I'm really good at this one thing, and it'll keep me, and Hayward-Bay ended up playing in the league for 10 years or something. What did he catch? 5 passes on the Steelers the last couple years he was here?
No, man, one of my favorite stories with that, I don't know when this guy was drafted, but some of the people probably won't even know who I'm talking about here, but I know you will. The Jeremy Tooman arc.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Jeremy Tooman had, I can't remember exactly, but he had something like 60 or 70 catches his entire career.
Yeah.
He never, ever caught the ball, but he was just an exceptional run blocker, and so Bill Cowher naturally fell in love with him immediately. But he had a long career, and then after he was done with the Steelers, he went over to the Cardinals, I think, for a couple of years, and might have been on another team or two, and he was just a great run blocker.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was the thing. You just find what role works for you, man. Don't play to your strengths. Play to your strengths. Tom Brady made a whole career out of playing to his strengths.
Hey, we've reached a point in the season where Gage is starting to say nice things about both Lamar Jackson and Tom Brady. So I guess that's a nice, exciting step forward for us in week 7. All right. Well,
I'll let that one go.
I'll let it go. Folks,
look at this chat.
I know it's been lively. Everybody's been having a good time. Everybody showed up. I guess taking a couple weeks off to go and get married was a good move for the brand. Everybody's like back in full force today. Very exciting. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably has to do with the fact that we scored 30 points and won by 3 touchdowns. That's the other thing I can't believe is like we're talking about this after we scored 30 points and won a game by like 19 points. Like, like I can't believe that no matter what happens, we end up in the same spot. Like, I know last year it's like, oh, like Pickett's terrible. Should we bench him? Trubisky's terrible. Should we bench him? Rudolph's really good. Should we bench him? And like now it's like, we're winning games and the quarterback's playing pretty good and we scored 30 points and we run by 19 points and now everybody's like, we should bench the quarterback. And I'm like, I think you're finding problems where there aren't any. Like, I just the abstract of like, well, he's not going to do this and he's not going to do that. And whichever guy it is we're talking about, I say let the chips fall as they fall, man. Like, just keep riding this out. You know, eventually he might falter and you might go to Wilson. He might get hurt and then you go to Wilson. And then Wilson plays really good and doesn't relinquish the job, or, you know. And also I've seen the thing about like the draft pick where if he plays like 51% of the snaps this season,
yeah,
they get a 4th round pick instead of a 6th round pick. Trust me, okay, folks, the Steelers do not give a shit about that. They do not. They would rather give up a 6, sure, but not at the expense of winning games and finding your future quarterback. That does not. I guarantee you, there has not been one conversation between Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin in regards to the draft pick slotting of what they give up for Justin Fields. I guarantee it's not like it's a 2nd or a 1st or a 2nd and a 4th. Like, it's a 4th round pick. You get a good year quarterback play out of it. It's worth it. They don't care.
Yeah, and I mean, like, some of these people in the chat, they're like, well, what if he goes out there and just shits the bed against the Jets or something like that? I think maybe to be more clear, I guess, with both of our stances, I think, is that I don't think either of us are opposed to him being benched if he just goes out there and shits the bed and throws 4 picks or something like that. Sure, but in that case, I'll be totally fine that we waited until there was a reason to bench him before we potentially, crushed his confidence and whatnot. Like, I think some people still have the idea that this is Madden and that you can just interchangeably switch guys and everything's fine. And it's like, no, chemistry with players matters and how well they know the scheme and game. Like, when was the last time Russell Wilson played in a game? I mean, it's coming up on a year.
Yeah. Well, I know.
There comes a certain point where something has to give. I guess that's my point here.
Well, yeah, no, and that's the other thing that I've talked about too is like the whole sort of like young kind of mentality thing of like, I have thought that it seems like some of these guys are a little rejuvenated playing with a quarterback that's like their age and on their level. And like, sure, Kenny Pickett was roughly their age, but clearly no one fucked with Kenny Pickett. That's abundantly clear because I haven't heard...
Except one person.
Yeah, I haven't heard one person on the Steelers be like, yo, I loved playing with Kenny Pickett.
No, you heard plenty of people say how much they loved playing for Mason Rudolph, funny, during that period, but not a single person came to Kenny Pickett's defense.
No, exactly. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see all the comments in the chat, like, I don't know. Yeah, the Raiders are terrible, but so is most of the AFC. I mean, I still gotta say, like, beating a team, I said it in the show, beating a team that you're supposed to beat comfortably is the first step, I think, to being a good team. Because for so long, in those tweener years post Roethlisberger injury, we'd be watching this team and everybody be saying, well, they should have beat that team by 30. What's the big deal? They won by 7 in the last minute. And then they'd end up with these good records because Ben would just pull wins out of his ass and whatever. But at the end of the day, you're left empty. You say, oh yeah, we won 10 games, but did it really matter? And now it's like, okay, we beat the Raiders by 20, and everybody's like, well, it didn't really matter because it's the Raiders. Yeah, no, I'm not opposed to you. I'm not Empower. To be clear, Empower, are you positing to start Wilson, or are you just positing to give him playtime, like you say, in garbage time? Like, I'm just curious, like, what are you putting forth? Because clearly you have a strong opinion on this matter. And yeah, and I agree with this. Progressively playing worse. What is this? Like, somebody said Fields is progressively playing worse, and I see somebody responding to that. I just don't see that. I don't see that. Where do we see that? Like, how is he playing worse? The Colts was his best game as a passer on the Steelers. He got them back into it. Do not tell me he didn't get them back into it, okay? That game was 100% more on the elite defense, who gave up 17 points immediately to a backup quarterback. Immediately. That first drive was like 3 plays. And you're going to blame the quarterback who got them back into it for playing progressively worse. Oh, okay, yeah, you lost the next week to the Cowboys. Oh, you mean the game where it was delayed an hour and a half and they all had to warm up again? And and then they come out and does anybody remember what happened in that game? Because I remember what happened in that game.
Stopped from winning.
I remember what happened in that game. Justin Fields threw a touchdown pass to take the lead with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and then the elite defense came out and let Dak Prescott go 90 plays and fucking 115 snaps and score a touchdown with no time left on the clock. So how is that the quarterback's fault? He played a guy who's making $60 million a year, and he did his job. So, like, I don't know. Now I'm getting fired up. I got to take the cardigan off. I'm getting pissed off now. Let's go. What's going on?
I think people are very outcome based or box score based. I think a lot of that comes from. I'm not going to be the old guy complaining about how fantasy football has turned a bunch of players into a bunch of ones and zeros. But
I think he's like the eighth ranked. I think he's like the seventh or eighth ranked quarterback in fantasy football this year. He's got 350 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns.
I don't like that. What does that say about like how much it values rushing as a quarterback over throwing as a quarterback?
You know,
maybe that's why there's been this like big like transition and shift to like we have to have a quarterback that also like runs a 4.2 40 or something like that.
I don't know. I do think overall that the quality of quarterback play in the NFL is dipping right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, like, here's what bothers me is I liked watching. It's not so much just because they're pocket passers necessarily. I mean, like Peyton Manning is my guy, but I mean, on top of that, like I always loved, Kurt Warner, or, even welfare thief Favre and whatnot was a lot of fun to watch because these dudes were just they were all about finding ways to win or finding errors in the defense or winning with fundamentals, which is clearly what is shown to get you the farthest in the Super Bowl. I mean, Tom Brady is the least mobile quarterback in NFL history. He has 7 championships, and it's because people just love to go into cover 3 against him and let him complete everything underneath. But point being is that the fundamentals are what wins championships a lot of times. It's actually, I'll make an MMA analogy if I can real quick, because it's like my jiu-jitsu coach would tell me. It's like, how many times in your life do you think you're going to win with a flying triangle scissor arm bar from the, and now how many times are you going to win with a rear naked choke? Like, fundamentals are what wins. And so I always love watching those kind of guys. And so when I hear people that complain, let's say about Fields to kind of pivot, when they complain about Fields and talk about how he runs and how he misses reads, those things, like, it's not like they don't have merit. And it's not like they're not going to come up, but I'll take the guy who's at least learning over, Russ.
Yeah.
Who's just at that point in his career, man. You've seen him take 10,000 snaps, and I'd be surprised if he takes 1,000 more.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Shout out to our good friend Black Rain, who is holding down the fort in the chat, keeping everybody sane. He is the, I think I would say, unquestioned MVP of our Discord server.
For sure.
Yeah, he is. He's crushing it. If you want to join him and us talking about the Steelers 24/7, get over to patreon.com/5SMU. Drop a couple bucks in the jar there for $7 a month, or you can hit a super chat here on YouTube, and that'll go to us. That's what I would do if I were you. It's all very interesting, very compelling stuff. I love when it gets me all fired up. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree what everybody's saying here. Fields has improved. He's better than we thought. He can do a lot. He needs improvement. Has trouble seeing the field. They stopped the run. They will have more Cowboys games. You'd be picking out every problem if we were 2-4. Yeah,
I mean, because that would be a less production than what we've gotten.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
It's about winning.
I've run every sequence in my head, and unless you legitimately think that Russell Wilson makes the Steelers a Super Bowl winning team this year, literally, I'm not kidding, this year, if you think he makes them a Super Bowl winning team this year, then I see where you could want to put Russell Wilson in.
Sure.
Unless that's the case, I just see so many more scenarios where it works out worse for the Pittsburgh Steelers as a team and as an organization by moving on from Fields at this point. That's just the way I see it. You're going to have to pay one of them after this season or start over again with a rookie or a free agent. And that's the choice. Do you want to be somewhere where it's like, okay, I have this guy who's 36 who's going to try to cash in for the last time in his career. And maybe we won 11 games and he won a playoff game. So he's got a lot of leverage. And you're going to have to guarantee him $80 million a year. And he's going to be on the books until he's 39 years old. Is that preferable to like, wow, we had a fun year with Justin Fields and we won 10 games and like he might be the quarterback of the future, and you give him some mid-level deal? And I don't know. It's just I you can make a case every direction. I just see it ultimately as, unless you see him as capable of making them a Super Bowl winning team right now
this year.
Yeah, I don't see that being an advantageous move. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said earlier that it's settling for a slightly better quarterback play isn't really the move here. I don't feel. I mean, like Russ is who he is. At least with Justin, you have progression and learn and potential and things like that. And you've already seen, if he just came out and he was the exact same player that he was in Chicago, I would probably agree to, like, well, I don't know if I would agree to bench him, but we also probably wouldn't be 4-2 if he was the same quarterback he was in Chicago. But my point being is that he's already shown in his very limited time in Pittsburgh to have already progressed leaps and bounds. And I mean, again, that doesn't necessarily make him leaps and bounds better as a pocket passer, but I'm talking about his decision making. He makes, I would say, one boneheaded throw a game. And, you know, not that I'm comparing the two, but Ben Roethlisberger averaged more than one boneheaded throw a game, and he was fine. So my point is that Justin, at least for the progression that I've seen, for the results that we've gotten, there's just no reason to fix what ain't broke.
Dude, he's turned the ball over 2 times in
Twice.
6 games.
6 games.
I mean, like,
it's a lot. It's like one of the lowest turnover differentials in football.
Exactly, and everybody talks about the fumbles because he, I think, has 5 or 6 fumbles on the stat sheet. But like, most of those are just bad snaps. Those go on the quarterback. The center doesn't get charged with a fumble on that. Like, he only lost one of them. Like, you know, like we were all watching those first couple weeks when we had those bad snaps that knocked drives off of line. They weren't his fault. They were just things that happen with a rookie center playing. So, and ultimately he's lost one of them, which I think most of us are even in agreement that wasn't even a fumble against the Colts. His forearm was definitely down. I never got that call. So I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know. Shout out Juju26 dropping $1.99 in the bucket. He says, if Russ stinks, you think they go right back to Fields? I don't know. I think if you go to Wilson this week, you're saying he's the guy, and he would have to be terrible to lose the job again, because all he's done is get hurt and not play for the last 10 weeks or so, which is the reality, right? Like, when's the last Russell Wilson, you just said it. I mean, he hasn't played football since what, week 13 or 14 last year. So I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah, if you put him on a moving bus at this point in October, I think you're drawing a line in the sand, and you're not going to go back to Fields unless he gets hurt.
And, you know, especially with a coach like Mike T, who's Mr. Stability, if you will. M-Power makes a point I wanted to note in the chat, where he says that, like, I don't see the same progression that Gage sees. I see the exact same player, just on a better team. Okay, it's the same core player, I would agree, but I mean, come on, if you don't think that he's gotten better, at least decision making, like that's a big thing that I noticed, that he wasn't going out there. I've only seen patches of Bears games and whatnot, and obviously I see them whenever they come to town and play us, whenever they had Justin Fields. But man, like, if you're telling me that he's making the same number of bad throws and bad decisions that he was a couple years, I just don't agree. I don't agree. And I mean, like, especially those, he's learned how to weaponize his deep ball, at least to a better degree than what we had seen in Chicago, where before it felt like his deep ball was, screw it. Whereas now he's willing to take what's open. He's willing to wait for those selective deep shots. And then you see George Pickens, maybe he drops a couple, maybe he catches a couple, but you're seeing that those chunk plays are turning into points.
Listen, the Steelers are definitely a better team defensively than Chicago. But I don't know that you can say they're a way better team. I mean, he's got Van Jefferson, the imaginary wide receiver, running 50 routes a game. Okay.
Has he made a catch so far?
I think he has 2 or 3. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and to everybody's point too here, I see that we're coming around the bend here and all being normal people again. I love our community; they're so great in this respect. Where it's like, the fact that we're having this conversation fired up and it's fun and it's not
Yeah.
depressing, I think says something, which is like this is a good problem to have, for sure. Shout out Vanessa. I think they go with Kyle Allen if Russ stinks. So she wants to move in a whole other option. I love it. Dropping the
I agree.
$2 to give Kyle Allen some love. Hey, he made a great throw. Was that last week or 2 weeks ago? He came in and made like a third down throw and Fields
Yeah,
went
he did.
off for a second.
It was the one touchdown drive we got that game, and Kyle Allen helped us convert a third down. So shout out to
Yeah.
Kyle
Oh,
Allen.
shout out too. I gotta say this, Vanessa. That's the first time she's ever given a super chat on a live stream. At least that's what YouTube is telling me. So, awesome. Thank you. Legendary. Much appreciated. Um, yeah. I mean, hey, the fact that we are talking about this and it is not horribly depressing,
Yeah, I know, right?
is a good thing, because man, there were times in the last couple years where you and me would get on here and we would just be like, fuck, what are we gonna talk about? And then
Hey, Mitch stunk it up again.
we've talked for literally an hour and 15 minutes about Justin Fields.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we really never got off the quarterback talk, did we? My
It's
God.
the only and this is going to be one of our highest rated shows of the year. So,
Sure.
it's the only thing.
Yeah,
You
why not?
got to go with what the people want.
People
What else?
love quarterbacks.
They do. They are. Somebody says Van Jefferson is a hologram. I can't argue that. I like to call him hypothetical wide receiver Van Jefferson. Poor guy.
Concepts of a wide receiver too.
Yeah. Do you think the Steelers are going to make a trade for somebody?
No, I don't.
No.
I think that they had. I'm trying to think of the Tomlinism for it, but I don't know. I think they had a lot of different hooks in the water, so to speak. I just don't think any of them materialized. Like they wanted Brandon Ayuk, they just weren't willing to pay him what San Fran was willing to pay him, which is fine because we're seeing how terribly that deal is going for them at the current moment.
But I tell you what, I think what I've learned from that is I think Ayuk wanted to come to Pittsburgh. I think he's pissed that they didn't that San Fran ultimately wouldn't accept a deal, and then he was stuck and just had to take the money. I don't think he wanted to stay in San Francisco.
Do we think that he's Deshaun Watsoning? Not that kind of Deshaun Watsoning, but I'm talking about the kind where he's been paid a lot of money and doesn't give a shit
no,
anymore.
I mean I think I don't think he's a bad dude. I just think they got really off on. I just something's messed up over there.
After having that messy of a divorce and then having them reconcile with a depressing hand job, as Urinating Tree would put it, it just doesn't. It's not the same, and it's never going to be the same.
Yeah, no, something weird happened there. But they, clearly they weren't willing to go there, probably with the trade compensation. And then I think, by all reports, they were in on Adams, or at least to whatever extent that is. I was skeptical that they were going to make that move because his cap number is really tough to absorb. It's a lot. So, we'll see. I think, there were some reports that the Jets want to trade that Mike Williams guy, who the Steelers were interested in as a free agent. That's, for me, not moving the needle. He's probably better than Van Jefferson, but that's not going to be the kind of thing that excites you. Although I want to give a little shout out. I said it in the show. Bring back Antonio Brown for half a season. Listen to me, pal. You don't have to convince me. I would sign him tomorrow.
No,
sign him tomorrow. He would be better than George Pickens this week.
I don't care.
But I'm not even exact. Am I wrong? He would go out and be better than George Pickens on Sunday.
Probably. I just don't want him anywhere near us.
Is he dropping that touchdown?
No.
No, never. no way. That was
Yeah.
an easy touchdown. Pickens has taken such a step back for me the last couple weeks, man. You know,
Yes.
I hated to rag on him, but if you're gonna go out and make a big deal out of yourself, you gotta fucking show up the next week when they go out of their way that last drive to like throw a deep one to him and then throw him 2 passes in the end zone. You gotta make those count. You gotta catch the touchdown. Like, you can't go out and talk shit and then not back it up. Antonio Brown was insane, but there was never one single time in his career where he didn't back that shit up on the field.
It's true. It's true. He would routinely make the top 2 defenders on whatever defense he was playing against look foolish. Their best 2 players.
Laughable.
Like, it was almost you stole my word. It was almost laughable to think that you were going to cover him one-on-one. You would hear Mike Tomlin on the sideline. I remember this is one of my favorite sound bites of Mike Tomlin. You know that they're double zoning over here. They're not putting this guy one-on-one with AB.
Yeah.
Turns out they did, and it was like a 60-yard touchdown. It's like, those are the players that can talk shit. But I am so tired of mid to upper mid-tier players running their mouths.
George Pickens, yeah, he just ultimately is. I think at this point, I'm curious to hear the chat's thoughts. But I think it's. I don't think they're gonna give him a contract. Do you?
To who?
Pickens. Next
For the
year
amount
will be
of money that
next
he's
year.
gonna want? No.
Yeah, next year will be the last year of his rookie deal. So this would be the off season that he's going to be up for the deal. I don't know. I don't see it.
No.
He's a talented player and everything, but there's just something different about that dude. There always has been.
Yeah, and we knew that coming into it. Everybody talked about him in that regard going into his draft profile. He rubbed several GMs the wrong way in the draft process. So we kind of knew that. Funny thing, that was what everybody said when we drafted him, was that Mike Tomlin was going to be this guy that would put him on the straight and narrow and neutralize his ego or whatever shit people wanted to say. And no, he's still George Pickens.
Yeah.
But we've gotten some halfway decent production out of him, so I'm not too bitter about it. If he went on and was a motor mouth that didn't produce at all, like a Mike Mitchell, I'd be a lot more bitter about it. But GP's performed pretty well, especially for a second-round pedigree. But yeah. I'm not going to pay him if I'm Omar Khan. I'm not going to pay him top dollar. There's no reason to, especially when we're a wide receiver factory.
Yeah, no, it's tough. Although that wide receiver factory thing got me thinking a little bit right now, because not so much.
Okay, so here, but actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I had a feeling you were going to mention that. But it's also the fact that we didn't put a tremendous amount of effort into restocking the wide receiver position because we've been so focused on the lines. And I'm okay with that. Because, I mean, especially like we mentioned this on the show a couple weeks ago, that like with Arthur Smith being like the ultimate 12 personnel, 13 personnel guy. He's like, just give me all the tight ends and give me one wide receiver. And okay, well then you can kind of afford to do that with George Pickens and Van Jefferson if you have a halfway decent tight end room. But
yeah.
I think that in time we'll restock that kind of room. I don't think, and also Calvin Austin, he deserves a shout out because he makes like 1 or 2 splash plays a game.
No, I wanted to say it. That's when I started this monologue, and then I got ramped up about the Pickens thing. But I wanted to give a little shout out. I said it in the show. I think I said something to the effect of, is Calvin Austin actually ascending? And like,
yeah.
I do think you're seeing a little bit of improvement with him. I think Fields has been starting to kind of find him these last couple weeks. And some of these now third down conversions, I know he had like 2, I think, long third down conversions where Fields found him in this last game. I know that one where he scrambled left and threw it downfield, that was to Calvin. And I think he had another one that was like in the middle of the field. And just give him some props. I mean, it's been a long road to get there. Obviously, he missed his rookie year and played with Pickett last year. So in a lot of ways, he's been a forgotten man. And I've been hard on him because I, as everyone knows, was always skeptical of someone my size being a effective wide receiver in the NFL. But I think he's making good and starting to show some promise. So that's one thing I think that I would take away from as a positive with that receiver room so far this year.
He's become that guy that gets open once or twice a game in maybe not pivotal moments. It's not like he's a super clutch wide receiver, but on a couple critical third downs, or maybe just for 1 or 2 big bombs down the field, you can find him, and that's cool. That's cool. He's not in terms of the way they play. I don't want that to be, but in terms of the amount of impact they have on a game-to-game basis, he reminds me of someone almost like Nate Washington. Like, I always liked him just for the fact that once or twice or a couple times a game, I mean, he wasn't going to get playtime over Mike Wallace and Hines Ward and all that stuff, but you would find Nate on like one or two really important third downs probably every game, and I always really valued guys like that. Now Calvin isn't he's not going to be sitting down at the first down markers necessarily. He wasn't necessarily a possession guy like Hines, or even Nate wasn't. Anyway, he's more of a guy that you can find deep, and especially for a guy you said that's what, about 5'5", and for him to be a halfway decent deep target.
5'8", 5'8", pal. Okay. 5'8", 165. But I mean, for an NFL receiver, that's pretty small.
Yeah. That's some Spud Webb stuff in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, just a little shout out to him, and yeah, I think it was Daryl Drake you guys are talking about. I see some people in the chat like, which was the wide receiver coach that passed away. I think that was Daryl Drake. Yeah, I still think that they should have signed Juju in the training camp, to be honest with you. I would have went and gave him a year deal without even thinking about it. But
now Juju's going to go win another Super Bowl with Mahomes, so can't be too mad.
Dude's winning at life, dude. Got a 3-year deal with the Patriots, only had to play in that hellhole for 1 year. Now he's back with Mahomes. He's playing the game. Good for him. And he's probably still only like 29 or something.
Yeah, and like the thing is that he's clearly not even close to as fast as he used to be, but with how good Andy Reid is at scheming people open, it kind of just doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, he's just a good player, man. He's only 27 still.
What?
He's still.
I guess he was 19 when he was drafted. Yeah,
he's only 27. It's such a trip. How am I aging faster than Juju Smith-Schuster? When he was drafted, we were both 20 years old, and now I'm 46 years old and Juju's 24. What the fuck is going on? I'm not 46 years old. I stole that bit, not mine. All right, well, this has been a rousing edition of 5-Star Radio. I want to scream into this microphone for 2 more hours, but, I don't know. I don't think I have the juice. I think we should quit while we're ahead, Gage. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It sounds about right. Do I trust Najee? I trust Najee. Why would I not trust Najee? He shows up every week, plays his heart out. He's not a great running back. I did think he had arguably his best game ever, though, this week. He had some really... That touchdown run, I think, was the best play of his career so far.
Najee, I mean, I love Najee. I want to make that very clear before I critique him. That he's that guy that... What's the meme? That if you need 3 yards, give it to Najee. If you need 5 yards, give it to Najee, and he'll get you 3. Something like that. And I mean, that there's some merit to that. But I mean, what I love about Najee is that he plays 110% every single snap. He just has that cutthroat, I am not going to stop kind of a mentality to him. And I love that beast mode Marshawn Lynch kind of vibe to him, with like half the speed, mind you. But bear with me here; it's just an example. So I love Najee for that. It does kind of crack me up that rather than, easier said than done, especially someone like me sitting on my couch, but I'm saying rather than kind of progressing and sometimes finding the right hole, he just kind of pushes straight into wherever he's going. And it cracks me up, but it just shows that he's never quits. You know what I mean? He's always just got that mentality where he's just going to keep going. And that will wear on defenses. And that's why you saw, to your point, that breakout run, which is probably, like you said, the best play of his career so far. So it's been fun to see his progression in recent years. I hope we sign him to some kind of an extension. And I feel like we will. I shouldn't. I really feel like we should let him go, and I feel like we probably should. I feel like we probably will, but I think that we'll re-sign him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's tough to see, for me, them re-signing him because I think he's just gonna be ready to move on. Honestly, he's shown some frustration here and there with like media scrums and stuff. And he's a very smart guy. He's very intelligent. You could tell the way he talks is very thoughtful, and measured, and so a couple of times that he's shown some frustration, I think to me it kind of indicates like I think he's a pro's pro, but I think he's probably like ready to move on. I think he probably took it as an insult that they didn't pick up the fifth year. And I can't say I blame him. I mean, has he missed more than 1 or 2 games his whole career? I mean, he's been balling.
I think it's been one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's not great, the dude plays a physical style of ball, and he's available every week. I wouldn't blame him one bit if he was a little, perturbed that they didn't take the option for the fifth year.
Yeah, I know that they did that. I'm willing to bet that they did that as sort of a way to try to motivate him. As like, oh, well, because I mean, I remember that right after that happened, of course, Omar Khan, is doing some kind of scrum or whatever, and they ask him about it. The first thing he says is, that doesn't mean we don't want to keep him here long term.
Yeah, but what else is he gonna say? Like,
well, yeah, but I mean, you would think that like he would normally, when they answer questions like that, they're complete non-answers, whereas that was at least some kind of a definitive answer in one direction or the other. An extension after the season isn't improbable, especially if he keeps up at his current pace and he avoids injury. It's not impossible, but like I said, I think I mixed those words up. It's not impossible, but it's definitely improbable. But I guess my Hail Mary prediction is that we'll keep Naj.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. And I do, the one thing I want to say, because people are pointing it out in the chat, and I agree, he's been criminally underused as a receiver, and I do think that they seem aware of that because they're using him more as a receiver this year, because he is very capable, and I have always thought that they haven't utilized that. I'd love to see him split out wide here and there. They did it a little bit in his rookie year, but I'd like to see that more. I thought you saw a guy, though, that, he dropped some weight this offseason, and this week was the first week that we really got to see a glimpse of the speed. That one cut he had on the run to the right, where I put the like Chris Berman like whop in there, like that was like legitimately like the best move I've ever seen Najee make since he's been in the NFL. And then that touchdown run, I mean, he got through the traffic and he accelerated, and you weren't gonna catch him. So I don't know. I think it's more likely that we're living in a post-Najee society next year, though. I think they're going to Jaylen Warren is a ready-made fit. He's a great pass catcher. He's a great pass blocker. I think some people have kind of forgotten a little bit so far this year how good Jaylen Warren is because he hasn't really been healthy. I think Jaylen Warren will be the starter on the Steelers next year, though. That's my guess.
Do you think they've purposely been kind of keeping him cushioned on the sideline and letting Najee get more of the reps because they're not going to keep him?
Totally. I said from the start of the season that I thought Warren was going to see a dip in touches this year because they were going to see that. He's going to be he's going to be I think a restricted free agent. They're going to do the Mike Hilton thing to him, pay him fucking $650,000 next year to take 350 touches. Absolutely. No, I totally agree. I think they're gonna. I mean, it's not like they're trashing one, but it is what it is. I think they're gonna, and I mean, they already have a quarter of a season or more of light touches on Warren, so that's a positive. But the magic meatball, somebody called him. I think I called him the electric bowling ball. What did I?
The electric bowling ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said something about me. It was like the aggressive meatball or something.
I don't know. I just say stuff. I don't even know where it comes from.
The Blasian Beef Boy. That's my favorite one.
That one's banned, though. I have to stop using. I'm not allowed to, because every time I use one that has anything hinting at heritage, people always call me out. So I just stay on. I don't touch it anymore.
I will say that he is quite the. I view him as, again, not as talented necessarily, or at least not as good to this point, but he reminds me of Frank Gore. He has the same kind of game to him. And I think anytime you can have any kind of rough comparison to a player like that, it's a pretty good thing. But also, he strikes me as that guy. He's like a better version of Benny Snell. That is an odd comparison to draw to do it, because
no, I see
I always thought that Benny Snell was a guy you could build a run game around, but you're a guy that you have to give him
Yeah.
25 carries. Every time on the Steelers where our other running backs were hurt and we had to
Yeah.
put the whole load on Benny Snell, he did great
Yeah.
pretty much every time. But you can't just splash him in on third downs and shit. And I
He's
just
more talented than that, though. He's more talented.
Yeah, that's what I
than
mean.
that.
Same thing.
Yeah, I see Warren. I think he could be like I see him as like an Austin Eckler, Darren Sproles kind of guy. Like I think he could do a lot of stuff, man. I think he'll be, I love to see him starting for a full year, but I'd love to see the pair stick together too. I just don't think it's likely. I don't see it. Hard to explain. Real quick, drop $5 in the bucket. We appreciate you, legendary supporter of the show, even though we are on opposite sides of the aisle in the baseball playoffs. He's a Yankees fan. I'm a Mets fan. Both in the league championship series, though, so I'm rooting for a Subway Series. That would be fun. Jimena finally catches a stream, and we're about to log off. Where have you been all year, dude? I feel like every time you're like logging in the second we log off.
Every time.
Yeah, hard to explain says we saw more of the Bama-nage this week than at any point in his NFL tenure, and I agree. Yeah, I thought he had his best game. Some people, always go to that like Ben Roethlisberger goodbye game where he had the breakaway because that was like his highest total. But I mean that was like one game, one run really in that game. I thought he had 2 or 3 plays in this game that were just spectacular.
Yeah.
Oh, Magic Meatball is an episode of Rocco's Modern Life. Watch me, thank me later. I think I know what you're talking about. I've definitely seen every episode of Rocco's Modern Life. I have them on my Plex server. Thanks for the tip, Mark Johnson. I will watch that episode in your honor later tonight. All right, Gage, we got to get out of here. What do you want to leave the folks with?
Well, at the risk of being repetitive, I'm going to avoid the usual I'm excited sentiment, but it's just fun to see that we have an offense that's at least competent. It's funny that that's where the bar is right now. But between, like, honestly, when you have a defense that usually is as good as ours is, especially when you have TJ Watt playing like a man possessed every week and punching the ball out multiple times a game, I mean, that's all you really need is an offense that can get you to. We had an offense that was getting us to 17 points, and now we have an offense that'll get us to 24. And that doesn't seem like a huge difference, but it is. It is, especially when you have a top 10 defense like we do. It's fun to see where things will go. It's fun. I want to see this thing until the wheels fall off. I want to see Justin Fields be our quarterback until I see 3 interceptions. And then I'll start to, okay, maybe you throw Russ in. But until we get to that point, I'm interested to see what happens. And we've already seen that Justin is a guy that responds pretty well to adversity. It's not like he shells up like Aaron Rodgers does. It'll be fun to see where things go from here. So I'm excited to see where things go. And I don't know. I don't know anything past that. So right now, I'm enjoying the wave. And also, I'm going to plug my MMA channel real quick, youtube.com/contendermma. If you guys like any and all things UFC, you can find my stuff there when I'm not making content for 5-star. And follow me on Twitter at Gage Ryan Video.
Yes, do all the things. Definitely go follow his page. Drop URL in the chat, Gage, while I do my sign off. Make sure you subscribe to him. Don't cost you nothing to subscribe to somebody on YouTube. Help out 5-star senior producer Gage Ryan, who nobody seems to be able to ever tell is a different person than me when we do content.
No, right.
Even though we literally have a show where we both talk to you and use our regular voices. I don't know. Listen, I am happy with the Steelers at 4-2. I think it would be silly for them to bench the quarterback who's playing really well. I don't think it's what they're going to do this week, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Listen, it's a tough matchup against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. You can joke about the Jets all you want, but I felt the same way about the Cowboys, and I know everybody always disrespects Dak Prescott, but at the end of the day, he's a top-notch quarterback, and you guys know me, I'm a quarterback guy. For so many years, we had the advantage at that position week in and week out. And for a long time now, we are usually losing that matchup. We usually have the worst quarterback in a matchup. And this week against Aaron Rodgers, it's no different. Say what you want about him and his personal choices and et cetera, et cetera. He is a really, really good quarterback. And I watched him last night. The Jets stink, but he's the same player. He can still throw that thing flawlessly. He made
He's
one.
not washed yet.
No, he made one throw last night where I don't even know how the receiver saw it because he was like it like basically went through the defender. It was unbelievable. He's still I mean, he's the best arm talent probably in NFL history and he's still that guy. But you got to get after him. Their offensive line isn't great. His mobility is not what it used to be. He's coming off of a serious injury. I really hope that Alex Highsmith is going to be able to get back this week. I think that would make a huge difference. And I think if you play clean, efficient offense, you're playing a team that just fired its head coach who also ran the defense. So, there's room there to give them something that they haven't
So
seen
Jets.
and give them a bunch of different looks. And yeah, man, if it's me, I'm sticking with Justin Fields. And I think the Steelers are gonna assert their will a little bit on national TV. I think they're gonna get a dub and go to 5-2, and then you move on to the Giants. But we'll worry about that when we get there. Um, Hope you guys had a good time. This was a really fun episode, wasn't it, Gage?
Yeah, I had a good time with this. And it's also just good to get
Lively.
back in the saddle. It's been a couple weeks.
It has. It has. Regular scheduled programming returning. So
Mm.
we're back. Hopefully the Steelers will get a dub this weekend. But yeah, I will catch you guys down the road on the next edition of 5 Star Radio. Adios.